You're listening to the True North Success Podcast. Real stories of personal, professional, and financial wins from Alberta's best. With your hosts, Gary Ma and Amy Kim.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, my special guest is Adrienne Power, with over a decade of experience as a registered nurse and specialized training in autism and workplace neurodiversity. She founded DYSL.io to help organizations build truly inclusive environments. Drawing from both clinical expertise and lived experience as a diverse professional, she bridges the gap between the employers and the talent through consulting, coaching, and AI-driven solutions. So it's a real pleasure to have her on the show today. Welcome, Adrienne.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Adrienne, I gave a brief overview of your success and what you do. Can you fit in the detail of what you do and who are your main clients and how long you've been doing this for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of just roll things back a little bit. So I've been in healthcare for over 10 years now, in some capacity, whether it was a licensed practical nurse or as a registered nurse. And then I have my own entrepreneurial company, which is DYSL.io. And so what that kind of how that originally transpired was I had all this experience working with patients in all different areas from acute care, private, public sector. And I wanted to use my expertise as a nurse, but also to help people moving forward. So that's when I actually created our first app, which was Axon.ai. And the goal of that app was to help people with neurodiverse conditions, like myself, to be able to have an application that works with them, and that they have sort of everything in one place, like a hub of accessibility tools.
Awesome. So could you tell me a little bit about why did you name like DYSLI? That's a very unique name that I found.
Yeah, so the company was it's a take on dyslexia. So it's if you search it, you'll have dyslexia looked up. And the IO is obviously the tech side of the company. And then the app was named Axon.ai because we use AI in the app. And the axon piece is axons and dendrites in your brain, which helps with your nervous system. So again, going back to that neurodiversity component, it's just something I like to do, play with the names and try to make it relate to medicine and science in some capacity.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Tell me more about when it comes to neurodiversity, what does that mean really?
Yeah, so neurodiversity just means that, it can be dyslexia, ADHD. There's all these labels attached to neurodiverse conditions now. And I think we all fall probably in some spectrum of neurodiverse, whether we're formally tested and meet all the criteria. But I just think that it means that in our nervous system, in our brains, we are all different in some capacity, whether we perform as quote unquote normal would be, and we can access things without needing accommodations versus someone who may need quite a few accommodations. Neurodiversity is just, we are all unique.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So how I can imagine there's a wide range of spectrum of all this syndrome, and some individual might have like more than one of those symptoms. So could you give us some idea that people who is wondering, do I have any of this, or like how to start from this? I know I feel something different, but I don't know where to start from. I want to get some help. Could you give us some ideas?
Yeah, totally. So there's a couple of different ways that you can sort of get assessed. I think a lot of children are being assessed within the education system so much earlier. So if you're a parent, reaching out to your teachers or special education within that school is a really great resource to start with. There's also many different types of tests you can do with psychologists to get like a formal diagnosis. That being said, if you're an adult and you're functioning well, you don't feel that you're lacking accommodations at your job, but maybe you just always have struggled to read a little bit. There's nothing wrong with looking things up like on ChatGPT. I have these symptoms. Could this be something I'm experiencing? And then kind of get some information around it. And then if you want more information, obviously reaching out to your general practitioner. Those are really good places to start if you feel like you're needing extra support.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I was wondering that, was there some special moment for you that shaped that how you get into this field?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was working as a nurse a few years back, so I guess I started this company in 2023, AI was just starting to become a much more accessible product. And I started using it myself just for writing emails. And there was some accessibility features, but not a lot. And so what I did was think, okay, well, I use this tool over here and I use this tool over here. And why can't I just make this tool the same? And so we spent time building Axon for that, to take these two things and put them together. And we had such a great time building that. We've actually continued to build different applications now for clients, but who are also entrepreneurs, have different types of neurodiverse conditions, because often people who are neurodiverse are really great entrepreneurs. It's what is it like? I think it's like something like 40% or 50% of entrepreneurs have dyslexia or ADHD. So we really enjoyed that process as well.
I feel like I'm thinking about myself. I might have some.
Absolutely. I think everyone has some sort of neurodiverse condition because our brains are all not the same. So of course there's a variation of everything, whether it's a variation, I guess you could say whatever normal is, but there's definitely variations of neurodiversity.
When it comes to your reading, I often ignore the big fonts and I started reading small fonts. I don't know why, but anyway.
Yeah, you just have an aversion. You're like, no, thank you.
Right. So, workplace including is evolving quickly, and yet many leaders still feel unprepared to support the neurodivergent employees. What do you think really sets you apart as a founder in this space? Is there any specific strength? You mentioned your, clinical, the background, and your the passion and your interest, but could you give us a little bit more, like what gives you an edge in building the impactful neurodiversity programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're inside, it depends on whether you're working within a large organization or a small organization, and each organization has strengths and weaknesses. And I've worked in both. When you're working with a large organization, there's a set of standards these employees have to meet. And if you're not able to meet those standards, there may be room to pay for accommodations, so special softwares, etc. But often you're having to do a lot of work still to get those bigger organizations to pay for that. And so, technology now is not cheap, right? So some dictation software, especially in the medical field, can run you thousands of dollars in a year in subscriptions. And so it's not something that's easy for an employer to take on, which also lends the same thing to a small organization. And the cost associated with supporting a neurodiverse person. There was something actually put in called the Reasonable Accommodations Act. I think I'm saying it correctly. But basically determining what is reasonable to ask an employer to be able to pay for to have you as an employee. And I always use this analogy. If you work in an old building and that's where your organization is, it's on the 5th story and there is no way to access it other than the stairs, then it's unreasonable to ask that employer to build in an elevator. It might be a small business. They can't afford to put an elevator in. Maybe they don't even own the building, right? So that's an unreasonable thing to ask an employer to do. And unfortunately, they're just in an accessibility bad building. And maybe there's accommodations that they're willing to do in other ways, such as maybe you can work from home, other options like that. But that's an unreasonable thing to ask. Going to a workplace and asking for a dictation software or a calculator, those are things, or spell check like Grammarly, those are things that are considered reasonable accommodations to ask. They don't provide financial hardship to the organization. And so that's something that you kind of have to know with your own disability, where you're applying for, what accommodations you're asking for, but also the laws associated to what you might ask for when you go in for an interview.
So is that usually the people who have some idea that I might have something or they're experiencing some difficulties that they usually come to the organization like you, and then they see what can be done and how they can work with the employee?
No, they don't need to come to an organization like me. We're mostly now focusing on tech and not really on consulting at this point. I think that there's lots of really great consultants out there who do good jobs, but I think ultimately really knowing the laws as somebody with a neurodiverse condition that needs accommodations. If you don't need accommodations at your job, then that's great. Carry on. But if there's something that comes up or you're not performing at work as well as you maybe could, or maybe you're slower at something because of your neurodiverse condition, your HR department is the person to reach out for. They are going to ask for that condition is documented by a physician or a psychologist. Mm-hmm. So you got to be prepared to provide them with that information for them to be able to access the resources for you.
Okay. So could you give us some examples some successful story that when they started using your program, how they were able to improve their, work conditions or able to focus more better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think, when we use our app, specifically Axon.ai, we are using that in the workplace, or you can use that in your personal life. I had one lady who used the app. She found that it was super great for being able to dictate and have it read back to her before she was reading it out loud. And again, the performance of that app is up to everybody's discretion of what they feel is positive. But we've had lots of people use it and feel that they've been able to write in a way that is more professional. They've been able to put in different action tags with AI. So maybe, as we all do, write very concise emails and they come across as rude. I think we've all written emails where we're like, yes, that's okay. And maybe you're writing that because you struggle with language. And so being able to create a tab to ask the AI, make this sound professional or make this sound more friendly, is something that they can just use over and over again when writing an email or a text message. Mm-hmm. So I find that a lot of people find benefit in that. And again, the point of the app is it's a hub of a bunch of different accommodation features. Doesn't mean you need or want to use all of them.
Wow. Okay. So can you tell us a little bit more about how we approach that program? What are we expecting to get the value from that app?
Yeah. So the value from it now, I would say, is just being able to feel more confident in the way that you communicate, having the ability to kind of customize it. And then also too, there's an element to it that we really focused on attention deficit disorder, where we created tasks to be able to help manage your day. And each person, again, someone with ADHD might not need the dictation software, where someone that really needs dictation software might not need the task management piece.
So is that like an online program, you go in and you just subscribe? Is that how it works? Or is it because related to neurodiversity? So it's something you need to get some doctor diagnosed and to have some...
No, it's just available on Apple Storefront and Android. So anyone can go and use it, give it a try. There's a free trial. So you're definitely available to go use that. And then we're always in the process of developing new different types of applications, both internally with things that we think would better the world, but also we take on clients who have different ideas similar to Axon, and we actually build applications for them as well.
Awesome. So for anyone listening to who is thinking about starting their own mission-driven business, what advice would you give? Was there a particular mindset or habits?
Totally.
That helped you transform?
Yeah, I think in the tech space, when I'm consulting our clients that we're building applications for, one of the really big things that I always talk about, because we work with clients that are like the scrappy startup that wants to build their own app. We also work with B2B, so business to business. So if you're like a car wash that wants your own application, what I tell them actually is to read the Lean Startup Method. It's a really, really great book. It allows you to really understand how to start a business in a lean capacity, and then or build technology or build a service until you're able to get that user feedback and then iterate on it. And I think anybody can start a business with $100 now, but you need to be able to do it in a way that is lean and progressive and continues to allow you to iterate. So that's something I often give founders advice to. I'm like, read this book, read it a couple of times, so it really, really sinks in. But for me, that's been a foundational book as an entrepreneur, to be able to continue to build my business in a lean startup method.
Awesome. I love that. Could you give the name of the book one more time?
The Lean Startup.
And do you remember the author?
I think it's Chris something. I don't quote me on that though.
Okay, no worries. We will find out from
okay.
for sure.
But yeah, I'd highly recommend that. These are all the conversations we have with clients when we start building them apps, because what happens is a lot of people with technology, all these entrepreneurs, all these neurodiverse people are so creative, and they come up with these wonderful big ideas for applications. And what can really happen from that is you get this like tech debt, this really big balloon, so many different features in your mind you want to build out, but you don't actually know if the customer wants it. So starting off with like a minimal viable product is often much better. And then you're able to scale that product going forward, and build more features as the client wants it. And that's what we did with Axon. We built a very, very simple app, and then we slowly iterated on it, me and my co-founder.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that makes sense. Instead of building quite a bit, and then later on you find out that's not what market wants it, then it takes time to go back. So
absolutely. And you spend a ton of money. Like building tech, it's cheaper now. You use AI to build tech into code. So there's so many ways that we can take something that took 6 months to build and build it in weeks, not months. But you can still spend too much time and too much money on what you think people want, and really not what they're telling you they want.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is one of the biggest challenges you had to face, and then able to solve that challenge?
Yeah, so my biggest challenge with DYSL was I originally started it as a single founder. And I went and got my app built overseas. And I brought it back to Canada, and the app really wasn't up to the standards it needed to be. It did launch on Apple and Google, so it met all of the requirements necessary. But once we pulled the code apart, I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to cost me so much more to fix. And at that point, I really realized the importance of giving away some equity in my company to my co-founder, who is a full stack developer, to be able to continue to iterate on the app in a way that did follow that lean startup method. So I think that was the hardest thing. There was a moment where I was like, am I just going to shut this whole thing down? Like maybe I don't keep the business going. Maybe it's not going to work. And then just working through finding someone who had the same vision. And then that was willing to work for free for a little bit, until we could sort of start making revenue in our company, but believed in the overall mission.
Wow. I believe that we are always in the right timing and the right place, as long as we just put our vision that universe helps you come and helps you. So I'm glad that you find another partner. So it sounds like things are going really good for you and your business. Could you share, is there any exciting initiatives and the plans do you have in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just wrapping up a build for a client right now, and that will be potentially released come the spring. So there's some really exciting things there. So that will be up on our website by September is my guess, when we actually officially launch it. But again, it's a mission-driven project to really improve sports overall. And we love working with people who have those types of missions that really want to change the world or make the world a better place. So we have that coming up. And that's a really big project right now that we're taking on. And then we have a couple coming up in the future. Not quite as big, but definitely things to keep tabs on us in regards to our website. Because when we release these products, we often put them up on our website for people to be able to access them and see what we've built. Because we've got a decent portfolio at this point, which is quite exciting. And I'm really excited for this app to come out. I think it's going to be super exciting.
So that I would be the separate from the what you have already.
Yes. Yeah. Right now, we are mostly focused on working with entrepreneurs and B2B businesses, building applications for them. And the reason for that was we really enjoyed the process of building Axon. But it's really hard when you have all these ideas to continually build them and market them, right? I mean, there's a lot of work. Building the app is one thing, and then marketing it is like a whole other beast. And so what we really loved is we loved the build process. We didn't love the marketing piece, I don't think, as much. I mean, we've done it. It's been great. But I think overall, we loved coming up with really cool ideas and building those features into the app. And so leaning into our neurodiversity, leaning into our creativity, we're like, how can we help other entrepreneurs bring their visions to life? Because it feeds our soul and what we're good at to be able to do that for other people, and really hone in on what we love and what we're really focused on.
Wow, it's such a big journey that you started as the nurse, and then now you're going into entrepreneur and looking into like helping other entrepreneurs build their own, the technology, the tools. That is such a journey. So congratulations.
Thank you. It was a journey, and there was lots of ups and downs, lots of peaks and valleys through the process. I mean, honestly, the entrepreneurial journey is like that every single day. I feel like every day there's a peak and there's a valley, and you have a client call and it's really great. And then you have another email that comes in that's not as good. And then you have another meeting and it's even better. And so if you took that in throughout my last 4 years now, the amount of peaks and valleys is pretty crazy, but it's a wild ride. And I really do love it. I love entrepreneurship. I love startups. I love technology.
Awesome. I love that. So let's talk about some financial success and the, life-work balance, if there's such a thing. So, like many business owners are earning strong incomes right now, often requires a significant, investment time and energy. And especially looking ahead right now, a common goal is to like maintain the same level of the income and lifestyle while working less, especially with the inflation at all-time high, with all the uncertainties going on these days. So as a result, many people are exploring some ways to generate income outside of their primary work, such as like investing in the stocks or cryptocurrency sometimes, or precious metal or real estate. What are your thoughts about income outside of work?
Oh, I think having a side hustle, as I think everyone calls it now, is something that we all need. I'm in my 30s, so I am of like the millennial generation that I feel like we're all trying to figure out where the money went, and trying to create the side hustle to be able to make you even that few $1,000s more a month really makes a big difference. Inflation is absolutely insane. And that's one reason, again, like I love working with those entrepreneurs because they are having a dream, they're realizing it, and they're going out and they're actually making their lives better. I will say having a side hustle that may or may not turn into a full hustle is a lot of work. I think people often are striving for work-life balance and more money. And for a really long, they're looking for that passive income when really their problem is they actually don't have enough active income. And so I think at some point, will your side hustle become more passive, especially if you're in the technology space? I think so. I think with AI integration, there is an ability to create technology that becomes passive. Passive, though, happens way down the road. As an entrepreneur, passive is not something that you create tomorrow. So I think, there's work in everything, right? You invest in the stock market, you're invested in learning about stocks. That's what you're doing after work. If you are investing in real estate, which I have, we have rental properties. I'm still managing those on, Saturdays when I have to do a showing and post it on Facebook Marketplace. So I think that for a lot of people, especially like my generation, millennials that are really struggling financially and want to find that side hustle or have this small amount of money that they're going to put into an investment, whether it's technology, whether it's stocks, you need to figure out what's maintainable for you. And again, when I talk about the side hustle of technology, like I did with my app with Axon, really make sure that you're following that lean startup method. Because I guess my biggest fear for people who are going into technology is the tech debt. So that big bloom, this is the idea I'm going to have, and I'm going to put $100,000 of my money into it. Don't do that. Like I always tell people, yeah, sure, I'd make a lot more money if I took the $100,000 and built you an app, but it's not responsible of me to do that. So let's build you something much cheaper, simpler. You can test your idea and then we can build what the customer wants. And so I think that there's responsibility in all things that are passive. And I think the majority of millennials are looking for a side hustle.
Wow, I love your story because you're the insights too, because often a lot of people, when they're looking into inventing a new program, especially tech knowledge program, like you mentioned, people think like, I have to put a lot of money into it, right? And what would you like, what is maybe budget that maybe you can think like would be a good as a start?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things. So when we work with people who want to build side hustles and want to have a technology-based company, there's a couple of things I always recommend to every person that comes my way. First off, everyone wants to build an app and put it on Apple and Google. And that's really great if you're a medium-sized business and you have the money to invest about $30,000 into an app, give or take. And it's great because it will help your app. You'll get 40% more reoccurrent customers, 25% usually increase in orders by doing an application that's on Apple or Google storefront. So we're all used to. If you're a scrappy startup and you have this idea and you want to test it to see if it works, I always recommend to those people to actually build a web app first. You can get into it for like less than $10,000. And then that allows you to test your idea. You're not restrained by the storefronts. And it's just a much more accessible way. And then we can build in the features. The other little tip and trick to that is actually the same backend we build for your web app. When you're ready to scale to an app on Apple and Google, we use the same backend. So it's actually cheaper to do it that way.
Wow. That's awesome. That's really good information. So
yeah. So I'll just wrap up. But it was about $10,000 for a web app, give or take, and about $30,000 for an app on Apple and Google. Is something that people can kind of take away in ballpark. It obviously depends on features, data collection, a lot of different things. So we always consult people first to see where they're at in their journey, and then we would give them a much more accurate quote in person.
Love that. Love that. So actually, I'm thinking of building some program for, solo real estate entrepreneur. But we have to have another chat after this podcast.
Absolutely. I would love to talk about your idea. Like, to me, even just sitting down and having a chat where we can explore your idea and see where we can improve things or make things cheaper so it's actually a viable option for you is one of the most exciting calls that I get to have, and meeting people that have these really great ideas, because it gets me so excited. I mean, you can see me, I'm like jumping out of my chair, but it is actually how I feel about it.
Great. Okay, definitely gotta have a chat. So thank you so much for your time today and sharing your great insights and inspiring story with us. So it was a great pleasure to have you on the show today, Adrienne. If any people would like to connect with you, how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, so they can come to our website, dysl.io, and then you can go ahead and just send us an email, or you can send us an email through support@dysl.io.
Awesome. Is there anything that would you like to share with our audience as a last wrapping up?
Yeah, I think just if you have a dream, go for it. I would, there's nothing holding you back. You have one life. And so if you have something you want to build, whether that's an investment property or if it is an app, then I think you should go for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for today, Adrienne.
Thank you.
Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at truenorthsuccessshow.com/guest. We'd love to hear from you.